The world has never been louder. Everywhere we look, more people are talking about posting and publishing and trying to get their voice heard. And yet, in all the noise, there's this different kind of voice emerging. It is a quiet one, a more honest one. It's the voice inside of us whispering, "You have something to say, and it's time to put it into form." So if you've ever felt that tug to write a book, if you've ever wondered whether your story, your lived experience, or your ideas are meant to become something more permanent, you're not alone. So writing a book is one of the most transformative journeys you can go through, and more often than not, the process changes you long before the words change anyone else. And today I'm joined by someone who knows so much about that on the journey for every level. We have back with us today Mike Kim, Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestselling author of You Are the Brand, and now co-author of Own Your Brand, Own Your Career. And if you've listened to the show very long, he's a 3-time guest. It's got so much value, we ask him back again. He is a strategist, a creator, and now the founder of a brand new book accelerator that we're going to talk about today, moving people from that someday to start now. So this season on the podcast, we're also talking about people who are successfully stuck. It's that space where purpose is trying to get your attention and your next evolution is asking to be named. And writing a book is one of the most powerful ways to step into that evolution. So today we're talking about why so many people want to write a book, why most never finish, and what happens when you stop waiting. So Mike, welcome to the show.
I'm honored to be here. Am I the first 3-timer? I don't need to be, but that's a lot. So thank you. I'm honored.
No, you are not, but okay. But you're right up there.
I'm getting the
I've got
jacket
one other
soon.
person.
Okay. No, I'm honored. Thank you for having me. It's so good to be with you. And I always enjoy all our conversations, whether they're online or not offline. And so I'm excited to dive into whatever you got from me today.
All right. Well, one of the reasons Mike is on is because he is part of my journey of writing a book. So there's a method to the madness that we have here too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is madness, and there are methods, and none of it's clean. Just like birthing anything isn't easy or clean, but it's a beautiful process.
No, I know. And so before we dive into it, because every time we talk, I walk away with like 5 new ahas that I have to go write down and try to remember how to implement. But why do you think so many people feel called to write a book?
I think called, I look at it like there are people who want to write a book, like it's a dream. Mm-hmm. And then there are others who feel called to write a book. And then you've got like a third group where they're just like mandated. You got to do this or else you are just not going to be happy with yourself or your life or whatnot. And at every stage, it's a choice. And I think what the bigger umbrella above all those 3 paths is that deep inside, whether we can articulate it or not, we want to know that we were able to make something tangible out of the many experiences, intangible things that we've experienced in life, and be able to look at it and literally say, this is a piece of me. I have been in creative work and industries and all of that for as long as I can remember, whether it was drawing a picture and posting it on the fridge, winning art awards when I was in high school, wanting to draw comic books. Like, why? I don't know. I have a story in my head. I have a picture in my mind, and I've got to get it out on paper. And I think as I got older, I realized I wasn't that good at drawing, or I didn't want to be. It was too hard to really stick with it. But books have been what have changed my life. Even if it was comic books, Lisa, when I was a kid. So those stories and to be able to take what's inside and all this stuff that I've lived through to make it count. I think that's what is the big umbrella over all of those lanes. And then we just respond accordingly, right? So,
yeah, I like the difference between want, called, and mandated. So, where do you think the line is between those three? What is it that takes you from want to called and called to mandated?
For me, I'm not sure I ever wanted to write a book.
Mm.
I think I skipped that stage completely and jumped right to mandate. Because for me, the way it looked like for me was that in 2013, I was working this as the CM of a company, and I had clearly been going through a lot of life changes career wise. I had been in church ministry before that for my whole life, essentially. And 2013, I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life. I don't really.
Mhm.
I'm 35 years old at the time, right? And I need a creative outlet. I'd done music, I'd recorded albums, I had performed, done all that stuff, and now I'm teaching high school kids SATs.
Mm.
I mean, talk about a real big shift in just what I'm doing day to day. So back then, looking at it, I didn't have an artist inside of me that I really acknowledged. My creativity was always done through the lens of work. I worked at a church, and so therefore I created. I worked at this after school academy, so therefore I created curriculums. And now I'm going through this career and life transition. I'm going to create something based out of the transition, but I never created it just for the sake of creating it. So the only way that the universe could speak to me and get me off my tail to do something was to frame it through the world of work. That's the only frequency I understood at the time. I didn't have any interest in doing anything creative, quote unquote, artistic, quote unquote. It had to be, if God was trying to get my attention, it was going to be through my career. And so I started this career in marketing consulting. I leave that job and I start teaching what I've learned about marketing and direct response copywriting and branding and the experiences that I had at this company running their marketing. And so this book, when I read back through those notes that are still on my hard drive, on my Dropbox folder from 2013, before I even went into business full time for myself, I see an ache, an artist, someone trying to create and express himself, but always pulling his punches because it has to be valuable or helpful for people who are also going through their own career and life changes.
Mhm.
But to me, the primary driver of my life at the time was that I wanted to get out of my job.
Yeah.
And so that's the only way I could understand writing in books. Now I'm in a much different place. I've written a couple books. I've co-written two. I've written one for myself. I've done some ghostwriting projects. And now I'm just trying to write in a way where it's me and hopefully kind of helpful to people. That's not the best way to do it, but I figure after 10 years of doing it the other way, I've earned a little bit of a reprieve to just be able to share what's on my mind and my heart. And hopefully it'll be valuable to people. But for me, it was a mandate because I'm like, this is your way out of this life. That's not the same for everybody. Some have an artistic mandate. J.K. Rowling writing Harry Potter, just the words are storming off the pen from her onto the page, right? A lot of people describe it that way, but it's never all easy. It's always a lot of work. And so, if I were to describe what's the difference between being called and mandated, I think, to be really honest, that's probably the decision of the author. They mandate it to themselves.
Yes.
Like, okay, I feel like I'm supposed to write this. I mean, you've said that to me many times. I feel like I'm supposed to write this. But a gear shifted in you where you said, no, this is mine now. I'm taking this mantle on myself. I'm putting this cloak on, and this is I'm going to assume this identity and embody this identity. I just need to get this done.
Yeah. I think the difference for me was I saw this was the last line that I had to cross to move to the next version of myself. And as I write, I even notice that I enjoy, like I'm I don't know what's wrong with me, Mike, but I enjoy the process of doing this writing. Like it's almost like I have this out of body experience watching me write the book. that I'm saying, wow, I'm actually doing it. And, that's something that I was not familiar with before.
I liken it to cooking. Some people like to
Mm-hmm.
cook. They literally like to cook. They don't just like to eat the food. They like to cook. They like to paint, not just look at the paintings. So it's a creative process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about a relationship that you start to build with this thing called a manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
And while I've ghostwritten or developmental edited on a few projects, I've always been cognizant of that. I have to make sure my client has a relationship with their own manuscript. Even if I'm helping
Mm-hmm.
them write it or ideate it, I have to make sure that if I am co authoring a book, this manuscript also has a very close relationship to my co author. Usually I'm the one who's doing most of the writing, but I have to do it in such a way that you build this relationship with the manuscript. And it's the same way I would suspect that people feel about food that they prepare, especially if they love
Mm-hmm.
cooking. It's not just a chore, it's not a survival thing. It's no, I love everything that I put into this dish. I know exactly why I did it. I know how to cut these vegetables this way and so forth. And you build a relationship. I remember my mom used to like, don't touch my pans. I'm like, what? Don't mess with my kitchen knife. What? What's the matter? It's just a knife. And to her, it's not. And so that, in a weird way, but maybe not so weird, that's us in relationship to our books and to our manuscript and that process and the craft.
No, I get that. Those are your tools, right? Those are your brushes, your colors, your paints, and all of that. So I used to teach cooking classes, so I know where she's
There you
coming
go.
from.
Yeah, there you go.
So when you talk about the relationship that you have, I'm thinking about, there's not every relationship always goes well. So there's that part of the relationship when the excitement fades, this blank page is staring back at you, and everything in you wants to go reorganize your pantry or do anything else instead of writing. So, what tends to catch people off guard once they actually begin? Because they're excited and they go into it, right? So, what's the point where they don't really see what's coming?
Oh, there's a million of them.
Yeah.
I'll pull a few off the top of my head. I think once you get one chapter done, it feels really good, and then somehow a few days later, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm only on chapter one," and you look at how much longer you have to go. I also want to remind you, no one is telling you how many chapters your book needs to be. So let me just take that weight off everyone's shoulders if this is of interest to you. Like, there's no rule that says it has to be 10 chapters or 35 chapters or a certain word length anymore. But I do think that once you pour your heart and soul into making that first chapter, which feels like your first batch of cookies that you make, and you realize,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, we got 1,000 more batches we have to make. Geez, is this thing ever going to end? I think what also surprises people is how much they want to change their writing when they look back on what they've already worked on a little while later.
Mhm.
And because the book process is very long, you're going to encounter that multiple times. You're going to second, third guess yourself a lot of times. And everyone does this differently. So there's no one size fits all, but I have to resist the temptation to go fix everything. I try now that I've written a few, just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. You will edit later, because I used to edit as I wrote, and that drove me nuts.
Mm.
And it slowed up the process a lot. So that will throw you off. Like, you'll write something and be like, I want to change this right now. You will also almost always decide you want to write a completely different book, and you should go write that one instead. And what you
Guilty.
do with what you do with that little guy is like, hey, thanks for the idea. I'm going to park you over here. I have an appointment with you in about 3 months. Our office is full.
Mhm.
Our calendar is full. You can't get in to see the doctor. So you're going to sit over here for 3 months, and I'll see you later. And that's what you do with that guy. You will tinker with your tools, like you mentioned, and your toys and your gadgets and all the apps, thinking that technology is going to do the heavy lifting for you, whether it's Scrivener or Google Docs or your phone or AI. And the book demands you. It demands your best. It demands more of you. It is an organism that wants your attention, that wants your input, that wants your wisdom, that wants your stories. And it is like a crying baby that you've just got to feed it, whichever way you can. Figure out how to extract this out of you, pull it out of you by any means necessary. Rambling into your iPhone on a voice recorder, pulling transcripts from your podcasts or speeches, gathering up all your emails, bringing friends over and having glasses of wine so you get them drunk and they get you talking. Whatever way that you can get it out of here and out there, that is the battle. And then you fix it.
Yeah, and then you fix it. That makes sense because it's just getting the words out, right? Getting out what you want to say. Well, Mike, one thing I've learned, and I think you teach this beautifully, is that the book that we think we're writing is not always the book that wants to be written. So how does someone begin to discover the heart of their real message rather than just going through the motions?
I'm not sure. In my experience, just my personal experiences, I've never seen that has never revealed itself to me until probably halfway through the project. Like there's a saying, you can't steer a parked car. And I do think that is, I have found that to be largely true. You just got to keep moving forward. You just got to keep getting the words out. And especially if it's your first book. If it's your first book, all of this is new. You are wearing all these different hats and it's difficult. It's overwhelming. That's absolutely true. Your second book, then you think is supposed to be easier because you've written one already. Why is this so hard? You dummy, And then you start second guessing also. You're like, well, this sounds just like the first one. Oh gosh, have I lost it? And in sports, we call it the sophomore slump.
Yes.
You have a great rookie year and you just kind of bomb your second year because you're just still finding your footing. But I think you mentioned that it changes you. And I think what it has done for me is to help me build a better relationship with my own creative tendencies. I know how I create a lot better now. There is a method to the madness, and it's never linear, logical. Everyone does it differently. It's why I'm fascinated by other people's creative process, but I'm not married to it. I don't feel like I have to take it on myself. I've got weird tendencies. I use the technology that's available to us. Every advantage I can get, I try to get. I edited most of my first book on my iPhone. And
that's amazing to me.
It sounds crazy to people. But what I realized is it was not about my iPhone. It was changing the way I was interacting with the manuscript. Because I was seeing it on a laptop. So my laptop became it became a rut. And my brain couldn't think differently. So when I would leave the house and just with my phone and going to sit in a hotel lobby or even in an Uber and editing it, this is how I would typically write social media posts. So I was able to think much more clearly, sharply, concisely on that device because that device is that's how I typically create on that kind of device. So it made my writing a lot sharper. Then you take your writing, and if you choose to record an audiobook, you will absolutely want to rewrite your entire book. You'll be like, holy cow, who wrote this run-on sentence forever? I can't even breathe in the middle of trying to read this sentence. Oh my gosh, this is the book I'm going to put out there. I need to go back and change it. Well, it's already at the publisher. Right? So every medium is different. I do not have AI write for me. I don't give it a bunch of bullet points and say, here, write something up. It doesn't do a good enough job for me. And again, it creates distance from me and the manuscript. I feel like it's not mine. It's not my child. So what I do instead is I switch to kind of writing mode, but I write talking. And so I'll open my voice app and I might have the bullet points on it, but I'll turn on that voice recorder app on my iPhone and I will literally write what I want to write. I say what I want, speak what I want to write and dictate that way. And then you can have AI sort of clean up the typos and the misspellings and all of that sort of stuff. But now I'm looking at something that I've written. even though I wrote it with my
Mm-hmm.
mouth. There are other times I have to write on the keyboard because I just feel good that day. I feel like touching the keyboard. I feel like my MacBook is really clean. And it's like, oh, wow, this is nice. I want to touch this device today. You just got to find any advantage that you can. I envy the older school writers, or maybe I don't, because they didn't have as much sensory overload as we do. I remember reading
Mm-hmm.
Stephen King just wakes up, goes straight downstairs to his office. I don't even know if he washes up or not. And he just sits there and types for a couple of hours. I think that's amazing. In the same house in Maine, he's always lived in, writing all these terrifying stories. But that's his process.
Yeah. And if you think about it, it was probably when he started a typewriter.
Yeah.
Maybe not even, I don't know. Do you remember electric typewriters? Do you remember?
I do.
We had
Yeah, of
those
course. Yeah.
electric
That's how I learned.
typewriters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned on a manual typewriter before they had electric typewriters, then an electric, and then moved to, I can't, the computer of doing all that. But I think it's so fascinating because sometimes I find in the writing process, if I have to create something, it depends, like you were talking about. Sometimes we can speak, but sometimes I can't think unless the words are coming out of my fingers on the keyboard. So
Yep.
I'm very curious, when you have written your own books versus ghostwriting or co-writing, do you find that you use different methods, or do you use different methods within one book?
Yeah, I think when it's my own stuff, I'm more comfortable writing it because
Mm,
that's how, I mean, everything's more comfortable because I would speak it the way that I would say it and write it the way I would say it. Where when I've worked with other authors to help them write their books, it has been a lot more lately. It has been a lot more asking them to talk, recording it and
mm,
transcribing, and then cleaning it up and doing like a mic written version of it.
mhm,
I assume that they want me to work with them because they generally like how I write. It's not going to be the same because it's not my book, but they like how I structure sentences or the way that the imagery that I use or whatnot. And I was never formally trained as a writer. I just read a lot of books. I just read a lot of books. And the more and more I read, I realized I've read a lot of books. And I'm like, oh, I like how that was phrased, or like this was phrased. And sometimes even if it's fiction, I will highlight something. I'm like, that is a funny sentence. I would
mhm,
never have thought about that sentence in a million years. That is such an interesting way to put it. And I will highlight that, and I will say, let me try to create something like this at some point, sometime later. Maybe I can write like this. And the more I've paid attention to that, the more I've noticed I've sort of subconsciously, intuitively created themes and
mhm,
motifs through things that I write. So um, I do encounter everything a little bit differently based on the project, but
mhm,
it's also understanding what the project is. If it's just a straightforward business or career development book, it does not need flowery, great
mhm,
descriptive writing. If it's a memoir, that's a different story. And what is the aim of the author? Are they really trying to write a book that everyone's going to read cover to cover, or is it really more to be a lead into something that they want to grow in their business? All are valid, but you just need to know what you need to know. You're probably not cooking Thanksgiving dinner um, in April. You're not having a turkey
Probably
feast
not.
in April. Probably not, right? So it's just what's appropriate for the project, what's appropriate for
Mhm,
the thing at the time.
yeah. Well, one thing you said, it was a few weeks ago, you had a masterclass I attended, and we'll be talking about that in a little bit. But you said that, we're not in the same world that we were 5 years ago. And you've alluded to AI, you've talked about using AI, but how has this credibility landscape changed now that AI has come in with people who want to write the books? What do we need to know in order to be taken seriously?
I think there's a couple of different perspectives that I want to share from. First is this. If you go to Barnes and Noble and you pick up any of like really good books, like really good ones,
Mhm,
memoirs, biographies, autobiographies, Walter Isaacson, any of the modern day philosophers. You look at Nassim Taleb or even Ryan Holiday's stuff, and you read these well written books, you realize books aren't going anywhere. We are fine. There's no AI that is going to write at this level and that style. Morgan Housel is one of my favorite actual writers. He writes books about money. His subject matter, the first book, especially Psychology of Money, was a runaway bestseller. I love that book. So much so that I didn't care what his second and third books were about. I just bought them because I like how he writes. And you can have AI create your work in his voice if you want, but it's not really going to stick the same. He has his own style, just like a guitarist has his or her own sound, just like a drummer has his or her own sound, just like a chef has his or her like their own flair on things. So I'm using a lot of these art analogies because that's true. When I read Harry Potter, I'm just like, good gosh, I could never write like her. This is it's so fast. It's so easy, but it's so engaging. And when I look at that as a writer, I'm just like, how did they do that? I've been stuck writing business books for too long. So first, I don't think books are going anywhere. But if we zoom into our industry for the people who listen to this podcast and people who are in my world, your world, we then narrow down the type of writing that is very particular and prominent in our industry. So we have essentially prescriptive nonfiction, where we're telling and teaching people what to do. And there are a couple of different styles around that, 10 chapters and here's what it is. And here's a story mixed in with an application and a summary. And that's every chapter. Or you have like the Bob Berg, Patrick Lencioni style, where they are writing through a story or a parable in a sense. And they have that style for a business book. And then you have voices that are much more dry and much more data driven or very heavy on research. I just started reading the book Quiet, runaway bestseller, the Silent Power of Introverts, right? And she's very, very well researched. So it's more of an academic book, even though it's a business book / I don't even know what category you would put it in. Sociology, I don't know. So I think if we were to apply your question to our type of books in the business world with solopreneurs, with experts, with speakers, coaches, it was not a genre, Lisa, that was well known for great writing to begin with anyway. So what you have to lean on even more so is your own personal brand, your own stories, your own experiences, your own self, because everyone is saying things that can almost sound similar. The differentiator is the angle and the perspective, and that's you. So if anything, I think people now, if you're writing books in that sector, you've got to put more of yourself into it. The people who can get away with not doing that are people who are already established authors. Simon Sinek has told his stories in his many books written. John Maxwell has told his stories. These people have put their content. Brendan Burchard, I mean, how many more times can he write about how he got in a car accident? He has to, because he's always going to have new people in his audience. But those books, those things have been written. And so now they can come at an angle where I am a 5-time New York Times bestselling author and people know me in my industry, and I'm just going to write a book and there's nothing of me really in it. It's just I'm philosophizing, and that's okay. But when you're in the beginning of your writing journey, if your writing is going to be something that's going to be an ever-present companion in your career, which I intend it to be for me. I do want to write another solo book before I die, maybe even more than one. It can't ever be far from you. It's like a dog on a very, very long leash. Sometimes when I walk my dog outside, especially off leash, she's never really that far. She runs down the street. She knows it's safe, waits for me to catch up. Sometimes I just keep walking and she's way behind and she runs up and catches up. That's sort of a book is always sort of in my orbit. I'm always working on a book. I'm always aware that something's there, that one of these things could grow into a book. It's always sort of there, and it's a life sentence.
But it could be a great life sentence. And that takes me to the identity of being an author. for me, it was always someday I'll write a book. And then through some very kind urging, I was told that I might want to go ahead and start a book, right? So, for those of you who don't know, I've worked with Mike for about the past 5 years, and he has really been behind a lot of the encouragement for the things I've done, this podcast and now writing the book. But there was a day when I went from I'm going to write a book to, oh my gosh, I am an author. I'm not published. I'm still in the process and I'm still pretty early from where I think I'm going to be. But it's this identity piece. And you talk about, that book is never far. I want to go into, you are the brand, you have your recent book with Andy Storch, the Own Your Brand and Your Career. But you've made a shift in what you're doing with your writing. So would you mind sharing that with the audience of this kind of step out that you've taken?
Yeah. So, in short, for the past 2.5, 3 months, I've been writing a weekly newsletter. And I don't really have a word limit or a word minimum. I just kind of write until I feel it's done. I don't have a content plan. I have no idea what I'm going to write about week to week. And even now, I'm usually up really late on Monday night, usually into Monday morning to publish on Tuesday morning. Really late Monday night into Tuesday morning to publish later Tuesday morning, right? And it has been fun. I do feel it's like my best work, and it's not a sustainable pace, but that's okay. How this all started was we're at the end of 2025 now. Back in March 2025, I went to a mastermind meetup in Boston with Ryan Levesque and a couple other people. There was about 7 or 8 people there. And when it was my turn to share, I just said, guys, I don't even know what I want to ask you. I just want to burn everything down. I've done this for 10 years, my industry, and I have no real energy behind it. I love the people I love the people I work with. I love my clients. I love my team, but there's something off here. I don't have energy around what I'm teaching and what I'm doing and what we're working on. I love the people, but I don't like the work. And I don't know what to do. And Ryan, who was founder of a software company, Ask Method, and sold his company and moved to a farm in Vermont, he's just dead stared at me and said, hey, I want you to read this book called The Second Mountain by David Brooks, who I'd never heard of before. He's like, I think that's where you're at. It's exactly where you're at. I know where you're at. I've been there and I'm coming out the other side. And I think that's where you're at. So, Lisa, the premise of the book is essentially that we all spend our lives climbing this mountain, getting to the top. And we realize when we're at the top, that wasn't actually the mountain. There's another one. And it's up to you whether you want to descend the first one and go try to climb the second, or you want to stay on the first. And I'm not a stagnant person. So I was like, well, no, I'm going to come down the mountain. But I didn't want to jump off the mountain. I wanted to go down slowly. I wanted to do this in a wise way. And Ryan had told me that he had been writing weekly to his list for about a year and no AI. And it was just really the things that he was learning and thinking about. And he's like, I think you should do this. I think you'll really enjoy it. I think this is, you got the chops for it. And after I got through some pretty big shifts, both professionally and personally, I finally made time to sit down and do it. And my dad died later in the year. And after I got through a lot of that and all the chaos of running around and flying around and all that, I sat down in the fall and I started doing this. And I've woken up every Tuesday without fail being really happy that it published. And I have read my entire newsletter on my podcast and my YouTube channel. So I don't create any separate podcast or YouTube content anymore, or at least right now. And I said that I would do this for 6 months. And I'm already 2.5 months in. Time has flown. And I can feel that I'm getting better. I'm reading better stuff. I'm writing better stuff as a result of it. I'm rarely posting on social media. I don't have a team. And I'm just like, I don't want to chase all that stuff right now. And it has really been a season of wintering. That's one of the things I recently wrote about. where it looks a little dead on the outside, but you're getting stronger roots on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just stripping away all the non-essentials. Instagram has never been an essential tool for me. LinkedIn has never been an essential tool for me. It's always been my podcast and my email list. So why don't I major on those? And that's what I've done. So it's been incredible. I've really loved it.
Well, from watching you from the side and knowing you for the time I've known you, like I can tell you really enjoy it. It's this creative process I see is so refreshing for you. And I sense it in every Tuesday morning when I get your email newsletter. This morning it came in, and I'm always eager to see what did he come up with this week. So that is all good. And I think the other thing too, Mike, is you took a step back and you looked at where the world is today, and you saw the power of books, which led you to this interest in helping other people write. So talk to me a little bit about why this urge to have other people help other people create their books, and maybe some of the things you are seeing people run into as a difficulty.
I think the long and short of it is that if someone writes a book and publishes it and puts it out in the world, they will never be the same again. It is it is one of the big transformational experiences and creations. And if I can play a part in helping someone birth that, like I've literally created transformation in their life. You can talk to any author. There is always a before I wrote a book and after. It is one of those markers. It is a transformational mile marker on your life's path. I was joking with our friend Stacey Brown Randall the other day, and I was on her podcast, and she was like, "Yeah, so one author to another." I was like, "Yeah, authors have a special bond. It's called trauma, because you've been through it. We all have wrestled with this golem in the cave, and if you do and you come out the other side, you have this thing that you call a book, and you're like, geez, this is like literally my life, a slice of my life condensed into a tangible form that potentially can outlive me. So to be able to work on something like that for someone, it's not for everybody. Not everyone's going to do it. Not everyone's going to publish a book. But if I can I remember every person that I've worked on a book with. They all remember me. I hold a special place in their lives. And it never gets old. Like the people, especially clients who are like, I hate this process. I don't know why we did this. It's not making any money. And then all of a sudden it changes the first day they get their book in the mail and they send me a video. They're like, oh my gosh, I got it. And I just crack up. Because I've been there too. Because it's all the highs and all the lows. I think for where people get stuck, I shared a few of those thoughts earlier, but what I would add to that is you just think that it's supposed to be easy, that it's just like a very linear, like, okay, you're excited, then you hit the messy middle and you come out the other side. No, it's not like this. It's like this. It's like all over the place, right? And that chaos, that frantic energy, this push-pull, this quit, push through, make it happen, I want to die. And all that extreme energy is because you're being creative. And I want to say that that's normal. That's what it takes to write a book. You look at any artist, any great artist in any medium, none of them are normal people. They all have crazy, crazy energy about them. Sometimes it's super crazy calm. You're like, is this a human being or are they a stone? Are they a boulder? Others are out there, chasing every kind of vice you can imagine and engaging in every kind of, whatever, depravity and all that stuff. And then they just create music that moves people, or they create an album or a painting that's just like, you're like, wow, And I think that's one thing that a lot of us who have grown up or had careers in very controlled environments, corporate America, whatever it is, we're afraid to tap back into that kind of energy. And you're like, am I crazy? What am I doing? I'm crazy. I'm a crazy person. If anyone actually saw what I'm like when I actually work on a book, they'd be like, oh yeah, he's just crazy like the rest of them. Only my dog sees, but I will walk around the apartment. I will scream. I'll be like, I will write things on the wall. I have entire flip charts that are laid out on the wall because I'm like, because I need markers, because I need to get it out of me, because the pen is not strong enough, because I'm so mad.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I
Mm.
gotta, right? And all these random pencils on my desk, like, this is crazy. This is just anything I can figure out to get it out of me and onto a piece of paper or a screen somewhere or an audio recording, I will do. And that is just the creative process. And I think that a lot of authors like to give really sanitized versions of what it takes. I write
Mhm.
500 words a day and da 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 da. And da-da. I'm like, that's never worked for me in anything. It's always been late nights, early mornings, stress, then not wanting to touch it, then absolutely falling in love with it. You got to dance with it long enough to hate it and fall in love with it. And then once it's
Mhm.
published, then you can look at it with a more calm sense of being. I know I've been talking for a while, but I want to ask one last thing, Lisa. Like, I was fascinated nowadays because of YouTube and the prevalence of podcasts and interviews, and especially long form ones where people are talking about movies they made, the great
Mhm.
actors and actresses of our time. And I was watching other actors, because he doesn't do many interviews, about Jack Nicholson in The Departed, which is one of my favorite movies, very violent movie. And you see Matt Damon, great actor. You see Mark Wahlberg, Alec Baldwin, Martin Sheen, and Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the greatest of our generation. They're like, dude, that guy was a menace on set. Nobody had any idea what he was going to do. He didn't follow the script. He didn't read the lines. And their job as actors at that level is to roll with the punches. And they would say,
Mhm.
Leonardo DiCaprio was saying that, yeah, so we had a scene where I'm talking to Jack, in character, and we're having a dialogue. He pulls a gun on me, and I like legitimately didn't know he was going to do that, and I got freaked out for a second. That reaction is real. Or there was another one where he literally pulled out a Ziploc bag with a severed hand full of blood in it onto the table during the scene. He said, I had no idea he was going to do that. And so I'm like, that sounds incredibly stressful. And the movie won an Academy Award. That kind of creative energy is
Mhm.
a lot of what it takes to really, really put your heart and soul out, because your ego wants to protect it. So
Mhm.
I would say, just be really comfortable with the chaos of that process, and, whatever it looks like for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, because what I see that as is if you think about like how we're taught to write, right? We're in school, we're at a desk, you've got this assignment, this is how many words it is, but like I can see you on a marker and taking your pencil and being verbal with it. Like I can see you doing that. But that's where we get this extra fuel and extra energy that goes into the emotion that puts the words on the page. That being different is what makes your book come alive. And so I love that you have poured this into a focus. I love that you're working with people. I believe you have a book accelerator that you may be working on or have worked on. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you can go to mikekim.com/write your book. I work with people in 3 different ways, unless I'm actually writing it with them. Um, I can do a VIP day where we meet before we meet in person. Meeting in person is really important. I want to work with the author. I want to get their energy, get their feel. A lot of times, if it's your first book, if you worry too much about how the book is written, you're not really tackling the right question. What you want to do is find a writer or find help or write a manuscript that captures your energy, not
Mm-hmm.
your writing. Unless you're a writer first, your writing voice doesn't really matter as much. You want to capture the energy. It's why when you read Robert Cialdini, who's literally a professor, a doctor, his book, even though it's very, very well known in marketing circles, was not a marketing book. Psychology was not, Persuasion was not a marketing book. It was a diagnostic. It was a research book that
Mm-hmm.
marketers reverse engineered. When you read someone who's fast talking like Gary Vaynerchuk, his book sounds like him, but it doesn't just sound like him. It captures the essence of his energy. So that's one way I work with people. We do a VIP day. We do a call before we meet in person. We ideate, create come up with the angles in the book. We usually create a book proposal and a whole table of contents because you need that as a blueprint of where you're going with the book, because you will get lost. Secondly, I do small person intimate 2-day intensives with 4 people max. I meet with each person before the 2 days intensive. We meet for that in person as well. And that's where I walk them through creating a book proposal, marketing plan for the book, and we stress test ideas and use that as a group. The third is all virtual. And so I'm not going to be able to do the same level of work with people in that medium. Usually the class is a little bit bigger. We'll have maybe 20, 30 people there. But I teach you the principles of writing a great book proposal, writing a great first chapter, ideating your book, especially for the market that you're looking to target and who you want to read the book. Those are things that are just very structural. And you mentioned architecting the book. It's structural in architecting your plan for the book. So I work with people in those 3 different ways, and all the details are at mikekim.com/write your book. Right now, at the time of this publishing episode, the VIP days and the intensives are all sold out. But in January, Q1 in 2026, I will be opening up more slots for those, as well as doing an online virtual Write Your Book accelerator, where I'll take you through that third option. So all the details are at that link.
Well, I'm excited about the people who are just hearing this for the first time and feeling that call in their heart, or the mandate, perhaps, that is pulling them in. There's really something sacred about talking with someone who has lived through this creative process from the inside out. And I know you've done it yourself. I've watched you do it. I know as you're working with others and as you're working with me, writing a book isn't just about telling your story. It's about meeting that next version of who you are becoming. So I'd like to thank you again for sharing some time with us and sharing your knowledge with us and just inspiring not only me, but so many other people.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm excited to see your book. I'm super excited, but I'm more excited to see who you become. You know, everyone thinks that they're writing a book about their expertise. And I always say this, it turns out the book was writing you. You know, it's going to leave an imprint on you. So my stuff's out there for the rest of my life, as far as I know, unless I got canceled. And so there's a piece of my DNA out in the world, you know, intellectually speaking. And that's it's a cool feeling. It's a cool feeling.
That is. And my dream is to have my future DNA out there as well,
Yeah,
Mike.
it's going to be. It's going to be.
Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Until next time, I'm Lisa McGuire. This is your passion, purpose, and personal brand. Keep choosing alignment, keep choosing truth, and keep becoming the next version of yourself. We'll see you here next week.